guys, how you doing tonight? I am so excited to get to eat a bunch of food with you guys later. I'm actually pretty upset I don't get to go to all of the parties, but what I hear is that the middle school girls party is gonna be lit. Let's just throw it out there. It's the best one. I'm a little biased, but I think it's the best one. Actually, the fall is my favorite. Not only do I get to eat a lot of food and see all the pretty colors, but it's my birthday. And actually my birthday was last week, and so if you forgot, don't worry, I'm not upset. But there is a gift table in the welcome center, and you can just put something there. I'm just throwing it out there. You can just leave something there for me. Not even, just kidding, you don't have to do that. Actually, as a kid, birthdays stressed me out. And it's not because I didn't get gifts and I wasn't loved or didn't have friends. Actually, I was just a jerk, for being completely honest. I'm a firstborn. Raise your hand, oldest kids, heck yeah. So, I'm a jerk, right? That means I push my parents' buttons probably a little more than necessary growing up. They'd ask me to do things and I just didn't want to do them, so I didn't do it, and would throw things, the basics. Nothing extreme or extravagant. But I'd push their buttons all year long, and if I wanted to do something fun, there was always the stipulation: if you're good. And this was especially true when it came to November, my birthday month. What happened was my parents would say you could have a birthday party if you're good. So as soon as November hit, and what I didn't know is that my parents were going to give me a birthday party anyway, because they're not mean humans, but I didn't know that, and they were dragging me along. But what happened was November would hit, and I would decide, okay, I'm going to be the best kid on the face of the planet right now. I'm a perfect angel. Mom asked me to make my bed, I'm going to make my bed. If my dad asked me to mow the lawn, I'm mowing the lawn. Whatever they want, I'm there for it. My grades are going to be good. I'm going to bed early. It's going to be the best thing ever. But there's a small issue that comes with that. You see, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's what you should do. But I am saying it's how it's happened for a really long time, and I'm working on it. Okay, I'm working on it. But what happened is that I wouldn't really listen to my mom. I have this thing called selective hearing, and it's not real and it's not a thing, but that's what I'm calling it. So I have selective hearing, and I'm trying to be good all month long and make it happen and move through it. And I just couldn't listen to everything my mom was saying. I couldn't do it. And there's this one time, and let me be honest, it's happened more than once, but this one time in particular, I remember. She's trying to get me to do the dishes, and I'm just probably sitting on my phone doing nothing, just scrolling through Instagram. She says, "Rayleigh, will you do the dishes?" And I probably said something like, "Yeah, I'll do it later." Not even worried about it. And then I forgot that I told her I would do it. And so I hear a voice 3 hours later from the kitchen yell, "Rayleigh!" And I go, "Oh no. What did I do?" And so I walk out to the kitchen. I'm like, "Yeah, hi Mom. What's up?" She's like, "I told you to do the dishes." Needless to say, forgot something. Told you to do the dishes. And what's my defense every time? I didn't hear you. And I kind of want to explore that thought of not hearing. Actually, the most common thing I hear from people is that I don't hear from God. They don't hear from Him. And Jenny said this last week, and I thought it was just amazing that God doesn't have a speaking problem, we have a hearing problem. So I'm going to do this with you really fast. Just play my games. Everyone close your eyes for a second. If you think you've heard from God, raise your hand. Okay. Put your hands down. If you know you've heard from God, raise your hand. Okay. And if you've never heard from God, raise your hand. Awesome. Okay. Put your hands down. Everyone open your eyes. So if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I've struggled with hearing the voice of God and knowing what he sounds like and all of those things. So it's not just a you problem, it's an all of us problem. And maybe it's not even you and it's just me and you need to pray for me and something like that. But if you're anything like me, then you've struggled with hearing what it is or understanding what that looks like at all. And I want to look at a couple things, a couple reasons why I didn't think I heard from God. So not necessarily you guys, but maybe you can relate to them. So the first one is that I don't feel like I'm spiritual enough. Like, I didn't grow up in church, and I've only been going to church for like 5 years now or something like that. So like, I didn't grow up knowing Jesus, and I feel like sometimes, me personally, I feel like I disqualify myself because I don't have that background, if that makes sense. Or like, maybe I don't pray this way, and that makes it so I don't know what it is. Or maybe I don't think this way, and maybe that's why I don't know what God sounds like. The second one I want to think about, and we're going to kind of stick in this point, but it's, I don't know how to hear God. And I don't know about you guys, but it's really relieving if someone in the Bible struggles with the same thing that I do, because then I feel like a little bit better off, because then I have someone to follow. Does that make sense? Okay. In the Bible, not only do we have this issue, but Samuel had the same issue. He had a hard time hearing God. So we're going to flip to, if you're taking notes, write this down, it's important, you should be taking notes. But Samuel, 1 Samuel 3, gosh darn it, 3, 2 through 10. One night, Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was laying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called to Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again the Lord said, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "did not call you. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. A third time the Lord called, "Samuel." Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, speak, Lord, your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." So, how do you go from not hearing God to hearing God? So the first thing is that we have to realize that God wants to speak to us. So after the first time God calls out to Samuel, he calls out 2 more times. Samuel can't understand that he's talking to God and doesn't understand he's talking to God. But he calls him more times so that Samuel will get the chance to come to him and recognize his voice. Second thing, so you have to choose your surroundings. And Kyle's going to touch on this next week, so come back and get excited about it. I'm super excited about it. But to choose your surroundings, this means your friends. And like Samuel was traveling with Eli, and you want to surround yourself with godly people. And busyness, the things that are going on in your life. Samuel was by himself in the presence of God by the Ark of the Covenant. He was in a quiet place. And what I noticed in my life specifically is the more I changed my environment to maybe not listening to a certain kind of music and listening to worship music, or removing myself from friend groups and into different friend groups, or just spending more quiet time without Netflix or anything like that, then I could hear God speak more. The last thing, the third thing, is it won't be what you expect it to be. Shalom's going to talk about this in 2 weeks. Like, guys, sermon series is stacked. You want to be here. It's going to be amazing. But it won't be what you expect it to be. Samuel thought Eli was speaking to him the entire time. The first 3 times. He goes to Eli and he says, "Okay, I'm here. What do you want? What do you want me to do?" Eli's like, "I'm not talking to you." Not even Samuel recognized the voice of God. And that's kind of nuts to me if you think about it. Because, like, if Samuel struggles with hearing God, that means I'm going to struggle with it too. And you may be thinking, it's great, it's a Bible story and it happens in the Bible, but, like, how does it happen in real life? And I don't know about you guys, but there's sometimes during the day that I just get this feeling of, okay, well, I need to go pray for that person. And I step out and I pray for them. And people, this is a common phrase that's used when I go out and pray for people is, Rayleigh, you keep making me cry. And it's actually not me, and I don't know anything about their lives, but God has asked me to do it and step out and do it. And most of the time, I don't even know it's God until the other side, until I get to the end of the prayer and get to the end of that time with them. I just have to be bold enough to step out and do it. And I feel like there's a lot of you in the room who've felt that way too, of I need to go do this thing and not being able to do it. But there's another story about when this has happened in my life. Probably be less relatable, but just bear with me in this. In my sophomore year of high school, a classmate committed suicide. And I remember that night very clearly. I remember crying in my bed and praying. I said to God, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about the hurt in my school? I remember what he said to me. He said, well, you're there, aren't you? And it wasn't like Darth Vader's voice or something like that. It was actually like just my own thought. Simple and little, nothing big. But I remember it because it wasn't something I would necessarily think. It was, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, you're there. You want to do something about it? And that night forward, I began to pray and dream about what I wanted to do to impact my school. And if I'm being completely honest, I didn't see anything come about it for a long time. It actually wasn't until Shalom moved here from Idaho that I began to have conversation with her about a campus club and what that means to do, and started to head in that direction. And even after the idea was started, I still had to get money to buy pizza for everyone and trying to figure it out. So I started to pray about that and dream about that, and I'd pray and say, God, I need this money, I can't do it by myself. And after a few more weeks, people were coming forward and giving me hundreds of dollars to start this club and get it going. And just God blessed it from the very beginning. And the very first time that we met for Real Talk, we had 30 people eating pizza and having fun and asking questions about God. And in that moment, I remember thinking about the very first time I heard it. And I was sitting there and crying in my bed. God said, well, you're there. You can do something about it. And maybe you're here and you're thinking, well, I'm glad God has answered your prayers, but not once has he ever done that for me. Why should I try again? What's the point in doing that? And I can honestly tell you that I don't know why things happen the way they do. I don't understand the way God moves and why he moves. I don't have that information. But hear me out. I do know that God is a good God and he answers prayers. I do know that he moves on our behalf and he does these things. He wants to do the same thing for you. And what if during this time he answered your prayers? What if he was waiting for you to just move on a little bit further to answer it and get there? And what if it was your time in your moment? You saw pieces of paper when you walked in on your chairs, and what I want you to do is I want you to write down one thing you're praying for. One thing you're praying for in the next season. We're going to go into 21 days of prayer and fasting in January, and I just want you to pick one thing, and I want you to put it somewhere in your room that you see it every day, and I want you to start praying about it. What could happen if God blessed you in that? What could happen if God answered your prayers? I think he could do it. I think he will do it. What I want you to do, I want you to bow your heads and close your eyes. You may be in here and thinking, well, Rayleigh, this God who answers prayers sounds great, but I don't even know him. I don't even know what it means to walk with him. And if that's you and you just starting to feel like you want to do this and want to walk in that way, I just want to pray for you. So if that's you and you want to start walking in a life with him, just do this for me. Will you raise your hand on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3.